Welcome to the Hope Natural Health Podcast. I'm Dr. Erin Ellis, your host. On this show, we discuss all things health, hormones, and happiness with a little side of this thing called life. Saril Vasquez is a triple certified functional practitioner that has the honor of helping women uncover their true root causes of hair loss while reversing it naturally. After suffering from hair loss and thinning for 10 years and a decade of experience in specialty pharmacies, she was given no hope, therefore turning to godly guidance and ancient remedies for a real solution. Trained and coached by some of the most successful individuals in functional medicine, her students rewind the aging clock, finally feeling confident about themselves again using nutrition, daily practices, and personalized supplement protocols. They gain control and clarity about which daily choices and exposures turn on or turn off their aging hair, regardless of their diagnosis. As the CEO of Bell Organics, Saril has helped countless individuals hold a deeper understanding of how the body is supposed to work, where it all goes wrong, how to fix it, and how their seemingly random symptoms are crucially overlooked clues. So welcome to the show, Saril.
Awesome. It is such a pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So before we dive into hair loss and the root causes of it, tell me a little bit more about your journey and experience.
My story started when I was 24 years old. So I'm 38 right now. And I suffered with hair loss maybe for a decade. And what really happened was I got off of birth control. I got off of the birth control patch and just massive amounts of hair started falling out. And I didn't really know that was a trigger at the time. I just kept looking for solutions. I was working in the medical field and with specialty pharmacies. And the providers were my friends. I had built relationships with them. And so I went over to them with a binder that I made of labs. It was about this thick. And it was so thick, I made a table of contents for them. And I'm like, look, on page 23, my progesterone is normal, but it's low. And then on page 32, my carbon dioxide is high. And what does this all mean? And they would just kind of give me this look of, oh boy, she's gone off the deep end, and lovingly say, honey, everything is normal. There's nothing we can do, but slow it down. And those were the words that I got from one of my dermatologist friends. And then I kind of had this understanding that I knew I wasn't well. And if I was going to figure out how to reverse my hair loss naturally, the onus would be on me. I wasn't going to be able to have this victim mentality and wait to be saved. And so I went back to school, studied functional medicine, obtained multiple certifications. And I realized that if we were able to restore integrity to the hair follicle, remove anything that is obstructing blood that is rich in nutrients and oxygen to the blood, to the follicle, then hair can grow. And so I went down this rabbit hole, spent $75,000 in 2 years that I didn't even have. I had to refinance my home. I had to get a new car. There was just so many things I had to do just to make it happen. And I didn't know that was going to be the number. I just kept going. So because I was so committed to figuring this out. And then I realized, okay, there is a way to break down the scar tissue. Scarring alopecia is not incurable. Androgenetic alopecia is not incurable. And if it's okay, I can show a picture of what I used to look like, just to help the people who are seeing this get an understanding of how bad it really got. Yeah, it was pretty severe. I had lost the texture in my hair, and I also had thinning at the crown as well, just lots of spots. My hair was basically see-through, and it was difficult because I'll finish this with this part of the story. I was single at the time. I had just broken up with my ex that I thought I was going to marry, and he cheated on me with a girl that was about 10 years younger than me, and I was 33 at the time. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this cannot be my story. I cannot go break up with him and then go look like this, 6 to 8 months later, and then have him be with this young girl and then go try to date like this. So that was another reason that really moved me to the finish line.
Awesome. So let's dive into hair loss. So it's not really about genetics or hormones. I mean, hormones I do see play a little bit of a role clinically, but what are some of the unexpected root causes that you found in your work, and how can these be addressed with functional medicine?
the most unexpected, underrated, less spoken about actual trigger when it comes to hair loss and thinning is your environment. And what do I mean by environment, right? There's this famous quote, genetics pull the gun, genetics load the gun, environment pulls the trigger, right? That's the famous quote. And I mean, everything inside of your body, outside of your body that contributes to your internal and external environment. So the air that you breathe, the water you drink, the thoughts that you have, the ecosystem in your body, whether you have low-grade infections, whether you have chronic inflammation, whether you have exposure to allergens, all of that. It's really this concept of toxemia that plays the biggest role as far as whether or not our body is regulated to the point where it can focus on reversing hair loss naturally and regrowing it the way that it knows to do.
Wow. So for your experience, what was your root cause of the hair loss?
Well, the trigger was the getting off the birth control
The birth
patch.
control. Yeah.
But if I go back and I really look at my story, and this is actually on my about page on my website, there were so many things. When I lived in the building in New York City where I grew up in, it was an old building. It was a nice building. It was the building that Babe Ruth grew up in. My father was the resident manager, so we lived there for free. And I had my tonsils removed when I was 5 years old. And I remember my father, he would take showers and he was always blowing his nose in the shower. So I knew that environmentally in that building, there must have been a concern, right? Why would my tonsils just continue to get inflamed? Clearly there was a reason. And I also had eating disorder when I was younger. So I was eating a ton of sugar all the time. And also on top of that, when I moved to Florida, I was exposed to mold. And there was mold in my car, there was mold in my home, even though my home was newer. And so it was like Epstein-Barr virus, mold, dust. Dust was another allergen that was affecting my immune system. And you would think, oh, but dust, how could that be a problem? It's just dust. Well, if you think about it, everything that we breathe in, everything that touches our skin, everything that we eat, it all goes inside of us. And it never, unless you have very, very, very chronic hyperchlorhydria, it never comes out the way that it came in, right? Like it comes out a different shape, color, size on the other end. So what does that mean? Our body has to process it. We're these giant recycling machines, right? And so the dust that we're inhaling these days, it's not dust from, organic grass where the cows, have dung that it like refertilizes and it's like clean. It's toxic material that's disintegrating into dust that was made in a lab. And we're inhaling that day in and day out. I mean, we make our furnitures out of it, all these chemicals that off gas. And, the socks they're made with polyester. And so we're inhaling that. And that is becoming a contaminant to our body. So that was also a trigger for me as well. I mean, even the feathers in the pillows that I had, the later the pillow became, or the older it became, the stem of the feathers began to disintegrate into dust. And one day I was changing the cover of the pillow, and my mother was with me, and I hit the pillow, and then all this dust came out, and immediately there was just pain on my scalp, and my stomach got bloated, and I got thirsty. And sure enough, there was a telogen effluvium episode. For the next couple washes, a lot of hair was falling out. So anything that could be an allergen in conjunction to your food. Food is a huge deal because there's a lot of allergens in food as well. So those are really the main triggers that aren't being discussed enough that are contributing to this epidemic.
Yeah. So many women who experience hair loss, they oftentimes feel hopeless or ashamed, especially in their midlife. I mean, really any time when they're experiencing it. But what do you tell women who come to you feeling like they have really no control over their symptoms? And how do you empower them to take action?
I actually have an ebook that I wrote and I give out to my community, and it's called Becoming a Volcanic. And it's based on a premise where our body, it manifests symptoms that are not in isolation. They're rooted with some kind of trigger. And so there's a worksheet in there that really teaches people to observe. What are you eating? What symptoms are you feeling? What did your poop come out like? And what happened with your hair? And so when we're able to look at all of that together, we can start pinpointing different things. I had a client that realized that every single morning she would wake up with her heart racing. But when she went on vacation, that wouldn't happen. And I said, okay, what's going on? It's like you're getting into your sympathetic nervous system overnight. And as you're awakening, well, that's releasing stress hormones. That's not going to help put you in a healing state. That can agitate scar tissue creation. So that's an issue. I had another client that she realized that every time she went to work, she would have these crazy symptoms. And she started noticing people would come in and say, oh, it smells like mold in here. But she never put two and two together until we started working and realized, oh my gosh, like you're an art teacher, chronically dealing with all these fumes from that. Then you go, to this moldy building 3 times a week. And so that was part of her equation. And so I would say, to answer your question, the most important thing that people can do is really just being very aware of, I was feeling fine. And now all of a sudden I don't feel so great. It doesn't have to be my hair's in my hand.
Yeah, I love that. I always talk about awareness. You don't know what you don't know until you actually think about it. And then you start putting the pieces together and you're like, whoa, this makes sense now, instead of just living in a world of, I don't know, and just guessing and the woe is me. Why is this happening to me, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So you also believe and know from your own experience that hair loss is reversible, which can be very empowering for many women. So what are the first steps that someone can take when they're looking to begin their hair regrowth journey?
The first thing is exactly what I was talking about, that level of awareness, but start documenting, right?
Yeah.
And so the first thing that we do if we want to go to the jugular is change the diet, okay? Because there are certain things that we know are a lot more provoking than others when it comes to an inflammatory state. And we want to try to put someone in a healing state where their body's like, let me go ahead and prioritize regrowing healthy hair. Then we want to avoid anything that can trigger inflammation as much as possible, right? Inflammation is one of the 5 non-negotiables. Besides inflammation, there's blood sugar balance. That's key. That's a precursor to hormones. I mean, that's just allowing you to be in a parasympathetic state. There's also circulation of the blood and the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system washes everything out. It's your sewage system, and the blood is the healer. If there's no blood, there's death, right? That's why diabetes patients get amputations. Their blood is so thick, it can't make it to their toes, and it can't make it to their extremities. And then there's no blood there. Eventually it becomes gangrenous. Bacteria grows. We got to cut it off before it spreads. So the blood is the healer, circulation. Then there's also sleep. And sleep is so important because when we're sleeping, we help the body detox. The liver's detoxing. This area, the cranial area, is detoxing at night through the lymphatic system. And that's where your circadian system regulates. That's also where you're in a parasympathetic state, hopefully for 8 hours. And so, it's going to be very difficult for someone to heal if they're not sleeping at least, 6 to 8 hours a night, right? And the last one would be, healing the gut, which is its own rabbit hole. There's so many different things when it comes to healing the gut. And that's where the food plays a role as well. I mean, sugar, gluten, dairy, corn, and rice, I would say are the 5 most inflammatory foods when it comes to creating that healing space. And so it's hard to heal a gut that is just consistently taking this in. Right now, I'm leading an experience with my community. It's about, 20 girls in there. And we are all not eating sugar, gluten, dairy, corn, and rice. And we're sharing recipes, and we're finding alternatives that are healthier for us, because there's red lentil pasta, there are breads that are made out of nuts and seeds, right? I mean, there's buckwheat, there's quinoa, there are different alternatives where we don't have to eat foods that are making us chronically ill and exacerbating the condition. And so I tell my clients, let's go through this period of episodic, quote unquote, starvation from these choice foods and create this healing space. And then I have this thing that I call the damage protocol, which is that day you want to go to the wedding and eat the cake. That day you want to celebrate your birthday. There are certain supplements in this whole regimen that you can take around that meal to help prepare your body for that stress response so that we
Right.
don't lose a lot of the damage that we are undoing while we're in the healing state.
Oh, I love that. Great advice. Yeah. And I swear, I would say probably close to 100% of people, if they just cut out several of those foods, whether or not they're experiencing hair loss or not, they're going to feel better.
Mm-hmm.
Energy, clarity, motivation, mood, sleep, you name it. Even your skin, your bowel movements. I mean, you might even lose a few pounds. That's a lot.
Oh,
Even like dry January. We're recording this in January. This won't air until February. But like dry January right now is very popular with people removing alcohol from their lifestyles, and a lot of people are dropping weight, and that's mostly inflammatory. Water weight that they're losing it's not necessarily fat, right? You can't lose fat that quickly, but yeah, you definitely drop several pounds just in inflammation. So super important. Those foods are definitely not good for us. And if you don't know, you don't know what you don't know. So try avoiding them and see how you feel.
right. Yeah, you don't know. And people feel all of these symptoms for so long,
Yeah.
Erin, that they think it's normal.
Oh yeah.
And they don't realize until after they've abstained from it long enough
Yep.
how crappy they were feeling for so long.
I know. Yep. I
You
hear
know,
it
they're
all the
like,
time.
oh, my rings aren't stuck to my finger anymore. I can take
Yep.
my rings off now. And, oh my gosh, I don't have a swollen face anymore. And I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, like you're living, like
I
what, and
know.
how is that living? Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. So what are some of the biggest misconceptions women have about hair loss, and how can they change their mindset to approach it in a way that will actually lead to positive change?
One thing that I notice in a lot of these communities that revolve around hair loss and thinning, it's typically revolved around the premise of just accept it. There's no hope. It's so depressing. It is
Mm-hmm.
so it's so hopeless. I have
Mm-hmm.
clients that like they'll be in my container and then they're like, I had to leave those other groups because it just starts
Yeah.
getting to you, and then you like start releasing all these stress hormones because you're like thinking like, wait, is it true? But that's their reality. You can't go to a doctor's office that has very, 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 very little evidence of reversing hair loss, let alone overall, not even just naturally, right? Like just
Mm-hmm.
period, with drugs, anything. Like you can't go to a provider that just has no evidence of it and expect them to tell you, oh yeah, reversing hair loss naturally is possible. You can do it. So
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna get infected with the beliefs of
Mm-hmm.
whoever you follow on the subject.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I would say look for advice from practitioners that have trials or people that have gotten those results within their within their community, or they've gotten results for themselves, because who you surround yourself with dictates what your future is going to be like. So
Mm-hmm.
don't be in the presence of people for too long that, if you're having hair loss and thinning, that are not inspiring that hope, because then you're never going
Mm-hmm.
to get there. You're never going to create that momentum to get the results. You're never going to even get that far
Yeah.
to start being on that train, because in your mind you're not fully committed because you don't really fully believe. So
Yep.
that's very important. It's the belief aspect of it. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people just are having a hard time believing. They're still stuck in the, oh, it's genetics. My mom was bald. My dad was
Mm-hmm.
bald. I would tell you guys, my dad has been balding since his 40s, and he now has zero hair on his head, and he's 84. My mom used to have big, beautiful hair. Since we moved to Florida, her hair has been thinning. Same thing, dust, mold, water quality here.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not the best clients. I try to tell them what to do, but they're happy and in love. They're just kind of like whatever. They don't realize that it's more than just about the hair. It's a lot of health
Mm-hmm.
issues too, but they are starting to pay attention with some of the health things. But the point
Yeah.
is that it's not something that is out of your control. It is so much in your control as
Right.
long as you learn to listen to what your body
Yeah.
is saying.
Absolutely. Awareness. Awareness is key. So you have a hair regrowth quiz on your website, so we'll make sure to link that in the show notes. And at the end of that quiz, you have an opportunity to book a call with you. And there's a discount code that we will include as well in the show notes to speak to you for free. So that's very nice of you to offer that. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before we wrap things up?
I'm sure in that quiz, there's also an opportunity for people to leave their cell phone number or their social media handle. And then I'll personally reach out with that book I was talking about.
Oh, cool.
So that would be like another free gift if they leave that information there so that they can start getting some of the tools. I also have a Facebook group called Reversing Hair Loss Naturally. I just went live in there last night. I go live once a week to answer community questions.
Oh, good.
So a good resource. And I'm hosting a summit soon, March 17th to the 23rd. I'll be having some experts on there, and we'll all be talking about how hair loss and thinning is reversible. So, they're going to want to get on my email list. So when they do take that quiz, they can make sure to subscribe to the email list so they'll hear all about that. But yeah, I think that's the most important message is, for them to understand that there is hope. And a lot of people think, like, well, is it possible for my type of hair loss?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. They're stuck in this this mindset that they've been indoctrinated with. You have to know the type. You have to get the diagnosis. You have to get the pill. You have to, this and it's that, right? And that's thinking within the box. I'm asking people to think outside the box. Right?
Yep.
Think outside the box. Stop looking for the diagnosis as if it were the cure itself.
Yeah.
Not.
No.
So what if they slap you with PCOS or AGA or TE? What comes after that is no good news.
Right. Yeah.
So the good news is really in being that, what I call a bellcanic, which is a master of your body mechanics, to reveal your inner bell. Because once you start noticing that every time you eat sugar, you get a lot of hair shedding or you get bloated, and you're aware of that, well, that's the catalyst to change. And then when you're able to stop that behavior and create that healing space, then you are going to have your hair stop worsening, if that is one of the biggest things. I mean, of course, there's other things like we mentioned, but do not underestimate the power of the small choices.
Yep.
They want you to think that you're a hopeless victim that needs to be saved. It's never that way.
Yeah.
For as long as you're a victim that needs to be saved, you get to be stuck in your limitations. The minute you step into your power and you understand that there is something that you can do about it, and you start exercising that power, now you get to become your own victor, your own hero. So that is what it really takes in order, because I don't save my clients, right? People go to my website. I have a testimonials page. There's a bunch of videos, pictures, a bunch of people there that have gotten the result. And so I'm not taking credit for that. I mean, I have spiritual beliefs. I'm Christian, so I do want to give God the credit for that. But at the same time, with my clients, it wasn't me. It was me empowering them to be their own hero and learn to help them understand how to follow the map that they need to create. So that's the message I want to impart on your community.
I love that. So with that being said, what would be your best or favorite health tip that you can share with the audience? Do you have another one, or was that it?
Well, this is like my life tip. Are you ready? This is big. All right. What you fear becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Ooh, I love that.
So there's so many different ways that this has manifested in my life. But even let's take the hair loss example. If I feared I'm going to go bald, there's no way that this is curable. This is it. I just need to accept it. Then what would have happened was, with that fear driving me, I wouldn't have had the courage to believe. I wouldn't have spent all the money to figure stuff out. I wouldn't have gone back to school to learn things. There's so many different steps I wouldn't have taken because of that fear of disappointment. But what happens is that while you're being in that fear of disappointment, what ends up actualizing is the emotion of disappointment. So you're fearing disappointment. And in that fear of disappointment, guess what you are? Disappointed. Yeah. So it actualizes in that way where instead, the only reason I have so many pictures, I have a lot of pictures of my hair thinning and the progression, the progressive regrowth. Every time I took that picture, my thought wasn't, oh no, my hair is so thin, I look horrible. My thought was, I have to take pictures because when I grow this back, I need people to believe me when I tell them it was bad. They're not going to believe if I can show them the pictures. And my thought was, okay, it's a little bit thicker here. And you know, what caused that? And how can I make it happen for someone else? And well, it got thin again in this area. And what could have the trigger have been? And I know it was my personal case. I had gotten to the point where I had stopped the shedding and I had gotten some regrowth in the balding, but I still had the massive thinning all over. And what was causing it was my bedroom was making me sick. There was mold in the house and I didn't know, and the dust as well. And like, I ended up just like crying to the heavens, like asking God for help. And like in that moment, because I just believed I was going to get the answer and I wasn't ready to give up, I went to the interwebs and I researched something I had researched a million times before, but I ended up getting a different result. And that was the catalyst. That was it. That was the missing thing. So basically, to wrap up my thought, the mindset, that the train that you need to be on is just this belief that you're going to figure it out or you're going to die trying, period.
Yep.
That's it. Anything else, you're not going to get the result.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, and I really appreciate your time. We'll have all of her information linked in the show notes. And again, thank you for your time. We'll see you all again next week. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment below. And if you haven't done so, please be sure to give us a rating on your favorite podcast platform. Join us weekly as we inspire you to be your best version. For more, follow me on Instagram at dr.erinellis. Until next week, you got this.